Hello and welcome to Curiosity's Sake. Today we'll be reviewing the Dog Island. And no, it's not Dog's Life. I already reviewed that one. Like 9 years ago.
I love my axe.
I say this because several people I've spoken to have said that this is Dog's Life or think it's Dog's Life. It's not Dog's Life. Anyway, now that that's all cleared up, The Dog Island is a 2006 game brought to us from the Dog Artist Collection, which is a Japanese company that was actually kind of ahead of its time. They took pictures of cute dogs and cats and uploaded them to the internet as art for people to buy and own. They also seem to donate the proceeds to this, at least in part, to animal charities. Although I have to admit, trying to navigate their website is an absolute headache. Like, there's just layers inside layers, it's like a Russian doll. I think they should really fix this because it was a nightmare to get through all this. Some of the pictures they've taken are quite famous. You might have seen them from time to time used in memes or just general internet shows.
Have a better plan. I'll marry a wealthy man. Wouldn't that make you gay? Not necessarily. That would be okay. What?
Some of them might have even appeared in television or film. The beagle used on the European cover of this game is actually still showcased on the website as a piece of art that you can view. Now, when I first saw this in a supermarket when I was like 11 years old, I kind of expected it to be, I don't know, something like Cartoon Kingdom, or maybe one of those crap kids games like Postman Pat. But no, the cover is very deceptive. I didn't touch this as a kid because my cheap caching crap alarm went off and I avoided it. I would say that this was judging a book by its cover, but when the cover almost feels like something trying to look like a cheap caching game based on a licensed product, you know, the worst kind of product you could possibly buy, yeah, I think it's more than justifiable to not pick something up because of that. The Japanese cover actually looks better and it's way more accurate to the product. I don't know why they just didn't use this internationally. The Dog Island is a sort of adventure game set in a world that is inhabited entirely by dogs, and you go on an adventure as a dog of your own choosing in order to find a cure for your sick brother. Honestly, the thing that made me want to play this was scrolling through images of it and finding this one of the pirate captain dog. Why wasn't he the cover character? He's not the main character, but hey, they've done that before in gaming. It would have sold more copies. So join me as we begin the weirdest 14-hour adventure I've had for a while. At least since Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. Wow, Yuke's and Ubisoft logo following each other. This really was a completely different time. This game opens up with the most sickeningly wholesome intro I've ever seen, where we watch some small dogs be cute for a few minutes, whilst there's a kid singing about... Actually, what is he singing about? Actually, I really don't know what he's singing about. From what I can understand, it's about how isolating the world is and how fortunate we all are to find someone to share it with. The music in this is surprisingly good. Like, bafflingly good. We'll talk about that more in a bit though. We get an intro in our sleepy seaside town. These two are licking each other in the street, which I'm not against, but come on guys, keep it in the bedroom. But most important of all is the pirate captain dog, who arrives at port and has a meeting with a mailman. This is Captain Eldorado. He's kind of an important character, at least in the early game. Ahoy there! So, you're the new mailman. Yeah, that's one thing that's funny to me about this game. The dogs have mailmen. Now, it's an age-old stereotype that dogs hate the mailman. So, I have two major questions about this. The first is, do dogs chase the mailman if the mailman is also a dog? And the second is, does this mailman dog have existential crises because he's the thing that he hates most in this world? I don't know, but I think that would make a fascinating spin-off art film. Or hell, even a spin-off art game made by the Chinese Room or something. One of my boys kept this letter in the wrong place, so it got soaked. And the address got all smudged. Can you still deliver it? Well, this postal service is better than the human one, where it would just go in the trash or be sent back to the person who sent it with a middle finger drawn on the envelope. Hi, Captain El Dorado. Let's see. It's barely legible. Then he just runs off with the captain's letter. I'm impressed that anyone in this universe can write letters, given that nobody has opposable thumbs. One thing you kind of realize very quickly is that despite the fact that everyone in this universe is a dog, everything is still built like humans would build it. So they seem to be using tools that are designed for human hands that dogs can't possibly use. I do wonder if this was a human society and all the dogs came together with a common ideal.
Humans tasty. Yum yum.
And then took over their society and are now just left with a world full of technology that they just sort of have to adapt to as best they can. Because they don't really have the means to start over or anything like that, so they just built on shoulders of giants. Then there's this guy licking his balls in public. Pretty sure this guy belongs on a register, along with the creep who just watches him. So, Postman Prick walks up to the sleeping guy instead of the awake people, though the awake people are blowing themselves in public. Okay, so maybe there is a fair reason in this case. Hey, old Donatello, could you help me? It's about this name. Any idea who it is? Oh yeah, ask the only dog in town that wears glasses. The guy with the visual impairment has the best chance of anyone of reading your letter. Well, it's hard to make out, but... Oh yes, it's that boy's house. Now, what was his name? So, then you pick your character and make them from scratch. Now, the game seems to think that you'll definitely pick a boy dog. And if you pick a bitch, then you're going to get misgendered a lot, as the dialogue constantly refers to you as a dude. Now, the game gives you a lot of choices when it comes to your dog's breed. Like, a lot. It's kind of impressive. You have 48 options, all of which have similar bodies and switched around features. But hey, for a PS2 game, this is pretty damn good. So, you also get to choose if you have a brother or a sister. I picked the brother, mostly so that his comments about the boy living there make sense, as the boy certainly isn't me. I remember now. Both are nice kids. You don't remember shit, old man. It is a shame about their father, though. So, Donnie here tries to tell the mailman the story about how Gwen's father died. But A, why would he care? And B, in a small town like this, he probably already knows the story. And C, he's working. He can't just sit around all day listening to other people's sob stories. Anyway, Postman Dog has a smooth recovery up his sleeve and uses the opportunity to escape. So Post Dog brings a letter to Gwen's house. And here's me. I wake up to my mother and brother. My brother has apparently been sick and he gets to wear clothes and I'm some kind of nudist. I need to go to the milk store to buy milk. Wait, there's a store that's just milk? Wow, okay. Yeah, thanks mother. I'm pretty sure I can find the milk store in the village that I've lived in my entire life. Thank you, you are a paragon of helpfulness. Oh wow, mother, the shop with the giant milk bottle outside is the milk store? Oh, thank the Lord I have you here to give me such crucial information, you loathsome bitch. I make fun, but this is a game for younger audiences, so I can give it a pass for over-explaining stuff at times. And we get to move around. It's a very basic affair, you just use the analog stick to run around, pick up the pace with the circle button, and you can also bark and sniff around. Barking and sniffing come in use later. Talking to your brother Emilio, he tells you that there's a festival coming tonight. The opening of this really is reminiscent of Dark Cloud. I hope the festival gets better than it did in that. Actually I don't, that was awesome. You leave the house and your mother finds the letter. It's apparently from her nephew who wrote it because he just learnt to write. So we go for a walk around the town, and now is a nice point to talk about how this game looks. I actually really like this game's presentation. It has a nice look to it. That's pleasant to look at, and it gives me the vibe of a DS game. Every one of these houses has some personality, a bit like my street, and every character is different. It's a really nicely designed game that's clearly had a lot of effort put into it, and I very much appreciate that effort. Honestly, it's what makes it stand out, and it's what made me even want to do a video on it to begin with. There's small chickens that you can bark at and they react to it. There's a few things to interact with in the town. Not a great deal, and nothing too deep at this point, but I appreciate how nice it is and how much space you get to explore. Bear in mind, this is just the start town for the prologue. The game comes later, like the real game with the world in it. I think it's kind of smart to not put too much in this part of the game, so you don't waste more time here than you should. So we talk to this guy Enzo. He informs us that we have no milk because his son is a useless sack of crap. The basket I need to make the deliveries are gone. Oh no, that are not true. Tell me that are not true. Yeah, there are a few grammatical errors in this game and the punctuation is weird at times. I'm fairly sure that this is due to it being a Japanese game translated into English. However, it could also just be a programming thing, like how basket is red, and it makes me wonder if this is some sort of variable. Though it won't be needed anywhere else, so why they do this is beyond me. Maybe it's like a linked quest item or something, like when you program the quest, referencing that item causes it to turn red in dialogue. I couldn't tell you. That's my best guess. Or maybe they were just unsure that people would know to look for the basket when looking for the basket. Anyway, it's a good thing that Enzo's son here is so useless, because if he wasn't, his even more useless father wouldn't have realised that he'd lost his basket, and that he's fucked tomorrow. So, he teaches me what the basket smells like. This is a thing that dogs do, and I'm not quite sure how they do it, but they can teach other dogs what things smell like. It's like some weird Time Lord power where they touch heads and suddenly share knowledge. I guess it's like when you hold up an object that smells like something and the dog looks for it. You know, like cops do with sniffer dogs? But I don't know how that works here. Did the basket have a handkerchief or something? In this case, you could maybe imagine that the smell of the basket is around the house. But then it's like quests where you have to find a unique mythical item that no one's ever seen before. And then there's always just a guy who's like, oh yeah, it smells exactly like this. Here, sniff my hand. Yeah, that's its scent. Go find it. And I'm like, how did you have the scent of this thing that you don't even really know exists on your hands? So this part of the game exists to teach you how to sniff. The best way that I could describe it is it's kind of like a metal detector. The little circle ring around the object lights up more and more the closer the object is. And you press the triangle button to dig it up. It's not a bad system, though it can get a little annoying if you're really close to the thing you're looking for but can't find the sweet spot. Though most of the time the sweet spot just isn't too hard to find. This is thankfully a game for kids, primarily quite young kids, so they made it quite easy for them. It's not the easiest game I've ever played, but it's up there. So by sniffing around a bit, you eventually find the item. I have to admit, it does make me wonder why you can be on the final bit for so long before finding the damn thing. But hey, it does add a bit of suspense and makes it more satisfying when you do find it, so it's not all bad. Took me a while, but I eventually found it. It's nice that you get a self-contained area to attempt your first sniff so that you can just find things easier. Wait, Knuckles' sister was at the festival last year? Typical, I bet down south they got Sonic the Hedgehog, but for the crappy northern festival we get Knuckles' sister. Look at Armadillo here, wearing the game's logo on his hat. What a shill. We bump into the postman from the start of the game. He's interestingly named Mr. Postman, so I guess his career options were well defined as a kid. I mean, you walk in an interview and you say, hey, I'm Mr. Postman. And few people could say no. I mean, you were born for this. Anyway, the postal service is your save function in this. You can also get letters from characters whilst on your adventures later on in the game. You can also send things back to them. We'll get into that in a little bit because it's like its own thing. You bring the milk back to your mother, and your brother asks if he can go to the festival, but your brother is sick with itis, pox, so he can't go. Now, one thing I'll give this game is that it at least doesn't sugarcoat this. It's implied that Emilio could die if he has too many overhauls. So, the festival starts off well, but then a big purple genie turns up and blows everything up. Wait, nope, sorry, that was... different scripts got crossed over, sorry. Emilio's conditions worsens before nightfall, despite drinking his milk. So he can't go to the festival and he's sad about that. Gwen's friends try to help her, but they suck at it. I mean, her brother is really sick and possibly going to die someday, and they're like, get over it, there's a festival on. Anyway, shooting stars happen, and old Donatello lets us know that it's a bad omen and that we're all going to die or something. Anyway, he's right, because Emilio sneaks out to the festival. So I guess Gustavo, who I assume is the boss of the local mafia. Anyway, he's organised a treasure hunt. Good. The rules are simple. There's 3 spiral shells in the... I can't do the fucking accent. Okay. Good. The rules are simple. There are 3 spiral shells hidden in the town. You need to find them by sniffing and bring them back here. The winner is the dog who finds the shells and makes it back here the fastest. We have a prize, so every dog do your best. This is what a spiral shell smells like. Well then, ready? Hey, isn't that your brother? Oh no, absolutely not. You're not with me. Beat it before people realize how uncool I am. I like whilst Emilio explains himself, Gwen goes into attack stance and growls continuously. Like, she's waiting for him to finish so she can tear him to shreds. In all honesty, I don't see the problem. This is all happening on his doorstep, and he only had to walk like 10 steps to get to the festival. Can he not just turn back and go home if he doesn't feel well? Well, I found the shells, and I win a bouquet of flowers. Thank you, just what I always wanted. So, Gwen, what are you gonna do with the flowers? Oh, silly. Obviously, she's gonna give them to his sick little brother. I like how they got my gender right in the first line and then got it wrong in the second. That takes skill. I couldn't even record that line without messing that up so that I got it right both times. Anyway, this dumb bitch gets Emilio's hopes up that he's gonna be getting a bouquet of flowers. So, if I don't give them to him, I look like a right asshole. Thanks, Viviana, you really dropped me in it there. I mean, I don't want a stupid bouquet, but if I did, I'd be really put out here. But he can eat the flowers or whatever if he wants, I guess. Oh shit, he's dead. Oh good, there's a sea captain on the scene. That's like the 3rd down from a doctor, I guess. Well, guys, let me tell you about this place called Doggy Heaven. So, Dr. Dog tells us that the kid is basically sick for the long haul.
Is a doctor like a physician or a professor?
Yeah, he's a professor. Of being a dog? Ooh, faced!
Yeah, Gwen, bark in his face. I'm sure he really appreciates that whilst being deathly sick. But, there is another. Doctor, that is. He's called Dr. Potent, and he lives on the Dog Island. Unfortunately, the Dog Island is a bitch to get to, so we'll have to go by boat. The problem is that there's several storms that have made the Dog Island kind of hard to reach, so there's a chance that the boat won't make it to shore. I like how this doctor tells us all of this and then says, nah, actually that's a dumb idea, the doctor might not even make a house call, you should just give up. Sorry to dangle hope in front of your face and everything, but you know. Anyway, it's time for us to step up to the plate. We're going to the Dog Island, we know a captain with a ship, and we're the protagonist. So if a storm hits us, the worst that'll happen is it'll cut to black and we'll wake up on the island. That's like the worst thing that could possibly happen to a protagonist at this point in the story. Also, apparently my father attempted to go to the Dog Island to look for a remedy and never came back. Although, he went looking for a random remedy instead of seeking out the island's doctor. I'm not that stupid. Not yet anyway. Well, the sea captain sees more sense and offers to take us to the island. Mother bitches at me because she doesn't like me going to the Dog Island, but what's the alternative? Even she knows that it's a futile effort to argue, so she just lets me go. Well, we're off on a voyage to the Dog Island, after everyone parts exceedingly useless advice on us. So then the Twitter bird falls from the sky. Maybe Elon Musk bought him mid-flight. Huzzah! Dinner!
Huzzah!
Holy shit, dolphins! Get the net, we're eating like kings tonight. So after that delightful montage, we have to do some gameplay. Now, I'm usually all for gameplay to break up a story segment, but I have to admit, this part is my least favourite in the game. I mean, you're on a boat, there's not much space, so you just mop the deck and do all the busy work. It's not very fun or interesting, and I honestly think I'd have preferred to just have gone to the island after that cutscene, or to have a few cutscenes on the boat. I'm going to sort of skim this bit, because there's not really much to talk about. I do kind of appreciate on a level that you actually have to work your way through the journey though. A lot of games like Dragon Age 2 kind of skip this part in the story with a time skip. Like, oh, players might not want to finish the game if they actually have to experience this part of things. Yeah, God forbid that we get an opportunity to share an experience with our main character and relate to them. So after a fair few days of busy work, you get told that the wind has changed, and the storm that has been heavily telegraphed since the start of the game is rolling through, and it's basically about to wreck us. Captain El Dorado tells us that we aren't going to make it to the Dog Island because of this storm, and I think he's being a bit premature. I've been on boats in worse weather than this, and there was no sign of anyone thinking of turning back. Anyway, Gwen's having none of that, and she commits suicide. I mean, if she wasn't the protagonist of this story, she'd be dead. Yeah, that's right, swim in the rough seas with your mouth open. That's the best possible thing you could do in this situation. She wakes up to a nice instrumental of the opening theme. She's immediately greeted by Amalia the dog, who has bells and ribbons in her hair. She tells us that we made it to the Dog Island, and that we're an idiot for trying to swim here, and that it's amazing that we weren't killed by sharp rocks. We also owe it to the Twitter bird for telling people that we landed ashore, or no one would have known and we might have died of exposure on the beach. I told you, being the protagonist, at this point in the story, we're bulletproof. Nothing bad can happen to us yet. The Twitter bird flies away, and I believe this is the last time we see him, I think ever. So, the Dr. Dog is apparently operating a clinic in the village, and we can immediately go and see him. I'm glad that this game doesn't do the fashionably late thing that later games did. If this game was made 5 years later, it would probably take you about 3 hours to reach Dr. Dog instead of just 1. I'm sorry, but testicles don't grow back. Shit. So, we explain everything to Dr. Dog that we explained to Amalia like a minute ago, and he explains that he has treated a sickness like this one at one point, but no two cases are alike. He's going to do some research to work out how to treat the brat, and we'll need to bring him some medicinal herbs and flowers and shit. You know, doctor stuff. They apparently just give me a house just for showing up. There's a slight chance that the house is haunted, but honestly, a supposed ghost who nobody's seen is better than The Sims 2 on PSP, where you have to share a house with multiple ghosts who attack you if you try to make use of any of your rooms. I sniff around the house for a bit and do find something supernatural, but it's not a ghost. It's a small patapon looking creature called an Ankh. Ankhs aren't real, like they're purely made up for this game. And there aren't any folklore or anything like that around them in real life. But in this universe, I'd say that they're akin to soot sprites from Spirited Away, or those things from My Neighbor Totoro that we don't really know what the hell they are. They're a bit more vocal than those examples, but they have that similar weird mysterious nature vibe. He's amazed that I can see him as not many dogs can. There's only a few characters in the game that can see Patasi, one of whom is a sniff master, which is alluded to here, and the other is a mystic witch of some kind. So I explained to him about my situation, and he's pretty nice about it and offers to help. Patasi here has his own agenda, but he has a symbiotic nature to him, where he gains power by helping others. His main goal is that he wants to plant an Ankh tree in the middle of the village here, and feed it enough goodwill that it'll grow. There's more to this story, but again, we'll get to that in a bit. I know that's become my catchphrase in this episode, but there's 14 hours of game to get through, so yeah, we're gonna get to stuff in a bit, it'll just take some time. So, because I'm a man with priorities, the first thing I do is get myself a bitchin' hat. So the mailman's relative is on the island, and you use him to save your progress and also receive mail from your family and friends back home. I kinda like this as a function. It serves no purpose, but it's a nice addition that adds a bit of immersion to the world. I go back and see Dr. Dog, and he tells me that there's more ingredients to save my brother, and that I need to go out and find them. I feel like he should have these on hand, you know, in case like there's a major flu epidemic or something like that. But no, that's fine. Randos from overseas can just sniff them out when they're needed. Anyway, whilst I'm talking to the doctor, this guy is earwigging on my conversation. Now, one thing that this game does, which you don't see too often, is that the audience knows something that the main character doesn't. This guy's pretending to be this great sniffing master who is able to smell the truth on you. And Gwen believes this, however, the audience know that he's just an eavesdropper and a faker. He is kind of an important character at this point in the game, as he is our first stepping stone on our way to Sniff Mastery, as he's a pupil of the Sniff Masters themselves, and he'll eventually vouch for us if we play along long enough. So this is the first time I stepped out onto the Green Meadows, and I feel like this is a good point to talk about the music. The Green Meadows theme just has that vibe that the musician is playing his heart out. Like, he plays with the enthusiasm of someone who has a gun to their head. Honestly, if there's a piece of trivia out there that explains that he had a gun to his head the entire time, I'd believe it. This piece of music is so pleasant to listen to, but there's several great tracks in this game that are just full of energy and sound quite pleasant. Pupsville is one of them. And I also really like the Highlander track, which is based on the main theme. In fact, I think most of them are a variation of the main theme, but I feel like it sticks out the most on this particular track. The guy who made the music for this provided the guitar work for a lot of Sonic games and Space Channel 5. He's got a good haul of credits, but I kind of wish I'd seen him in more stuff where he's front and center, like this game. I think this is the only music credit I found where he's the composer rather than a contributor, and the soundtrack is bloody great. It's weird, but Dog's Life also has a great soundtrack. In fact, Dog's Life's composer, Alistair Lindsay, later went on to do games like RimWorld, and apparently did voice work for Perfect Dark. But yeah, RimWorld also has a really memorable and good soundtrack. I don't know what it is about dog games, they're just their own thing. They all have the same crossover when it comes to talking points. There's so many things about this game that's also true for Dog's Life. Combat tutorial. I do like that this tutorial, he's teaching you how combat works, so he brings a bear over to demonstrate. Now, bears are pretty hostile in this game, and this one's willing to call truce so he can demonstrate the rules. It's only fair. Now, the combat in this game is seemingly based around the saying his bark is worse than his bite, as you attack by barking on enemies when they aren't suspecting you. This means that you have to stealth attack enemies that you want to incapacitate, and there's no means of frontal assault or defense. I can't say I'm a huge fan of this. The controls are a bit clunky when it comes to movement, which isn't usually a problem, but during combat, yeah, it's really difficult to get into position quickly. It's especially difficult in higher difficulty areas, where enemies just aren't going to wait for you to get into position. And in some areas, it's like enemies have eyes in the back of their heads and just see you from behind. Also, the bark button is a bit finicky, or at least it was for me. So whilst I'm trying to execute my attack, I think I'm charging a howl, which is the strongest bark you can do, but I'm just stood there staring into space like a plonker. It's far from the worst thing, and you can avoid enemies entirely if you plan your movements well enough, but I would have liked more options. Like maybe if I bark whilst they're coming at me, I could scare them off, or at least stun them long enough to move away. Maybe you could have had items or something like that to distract them or hurt them, I don't know. Just something other than relying solely on this. Also, you can only be attacked so many times before the game is over, and then if you lose your life, you have to go through the inconvenience of losing your items. Oh, and secondarily, your life, your cherished existence. You'll lose that too. Well, actually you don't, you just sort of wake up at the start of the area. Now, I didn't die in this game until around the 2nd or 3rd act. I'll explain how and why when it happens. Early game, it's very easy to avoid enemies and not get killed, so we don't really have to worry about this for a while. So this guy teaches us how to sniff out the ring fragments. Those come into play later, but the gist of it is that you need to build a ring so you can join the big boys club. So we go back to Dr. Dog, who tells us that we need to find more flowers. I'm starting to think that these flowers have fuck all to do with anything, and it's just him wanting us to leave him alone whilst he works. You know how men are told to get towels when a woman's going into labour? Why do you think that really is? Do you think they need towels? No, they're just trying to get you out of the room. I find him one of the flowers and he informs me that the Victory Gang are up to their old shit again. Who are the Victory Gang? Well, they're a bunch of punks who pick on random townies for no real reason. Well, there's kind of a reason and we do get to it, but right now they're just jerks. That was some excellent foreshadowing as we step outside and instantly come toe to toe with the Victory Dogs. The Victory Dogs are throwing tomatoes at this nurse to trigger her phobia of blood. Though from what she describes, it's more akin to a phobia of the colour red, as anything red and liquid reminds her of blood. I do know some people who have a fear of seeing blood. Thankfully it isn't that bad for them, but if they see a minor cut they lose it and need a timeout. We need to find a brave fruit to make her braver. Kinda wish there were fruits like this in real life. I wonder what would happen if I blended like several of them together and then just made a fruit juice of pure human perfection. Well, I found the fruit and returned to her. She wouldn't faint now even if she saw actual blood. Oh no, we might have actually created a monster here. Shit. At this point in the game, I meet a lumberjack dog. It's here that I notice how many things in this universe are based on human hands. Like, this lumberjack dog uses an axe with an axe handle, despite not having opposable thumbs. I can't help but think, in a world of dogs, wouldn't inventions be things that dogs can use? Like maybe a saw that's held in its mouth, or clamped to the dog's head or paws? This is what makes me think that the dogs in this world inherited their world from us, or something to that effect. Maybe the Anks are like the Reapers from Mass Effect and just left this stuff lying around to cause the dogs to progress faster. Because a lot of dog society is based on human architecture. Maybe the dogs had all this stuff and couldn't make their own, so they just had to adapt and use other species' technology, and their whole society is based around it. That does sound like a kind of interesting sci-fi story if I'm honest. I bring the lumberjack his axe, and he's ready to murder some wood. We find the blue flower just beyond the point where we murdered the tree, and the doctor's one step closer to curing our brat brother. So, Patazi, the not ghost, starts getting a stomachache, beginning the next arc in this story. You need to get him healed, but the problem is that he's an invisible spirit who can't be seen by anyone. Now, my existence isn't disputed. I'm not a creature of legend. I am corporeal and visible, and even I have a hard time getting a doctor's appointment. So I can't even imagine how difficult it is for this poor bastard. Of course, this is after Dr. Dog says that you're making the whole thing up and your Ankh buddy doesn't even exist, so you have to go to the librarian who lives inside a book like it's a tent. Honestly, this guy's living situation is really unfortunate. Apparently this is his house, and it's basically two walls that are also his roof. He doesn't have anything to sleep on or eat, but apparently has the ability to store items in his house. I really don't get it. Thankfully there's a witch that lives outside of town, though they mention that her treatments killed someone once, which is a great confidence boost. Thanks weirdo homeless dog that lives in a tent that's shaped like a giant book. So the witch doctor can see our friend here, or at least sense him because she's magic and shit. All I have to do is go home and find ashes from my fireplace. What? You mean I have to walk all the way back home? Man, fuck that. You're shit out of luck, Patazi. Okay, we got the ash, and Obaba is going to make us some medicine, which does the trick. She casually mentions that her medicine killed the best friend of the doctor in town, which is why her services aren't quite as popular these days. Viviana writes to us to tell us that boys are stupid, and she went to her cousin's wedding. We get back to town, and Nurse Francis mentions that Dr. Dog is missing. Fuck, we need him to cure our brat brother. Where is he? We find Dr. Dog standing over a grave, which is something we noticed before, and it hasn't quite come up yet. It's been talked about once or twice in passing, if you ask people about rumours and stuff like that, but this is the first time it's properly addressed in the game. Gwen, this is where my best friend died. Bummer, dude. So, the dialogue in this scene really gets heavy. This is where the doctor talks about how he made a mistake that got someone he cared about killed. He talks about how his pride got in the way and how his dreams are haunted by this person even to this day. So, as a small social experiment, I removed the image from the dialogue and sent the subtitles to people and asked them what kind of game this was coming from, judging just from the themes and tones of the scene. I got a lot of answers that basically pointed to, it's Persona, or something like Persona, which honestly, I totally buy that this was a cutscene from Persona just based off the dialogue alone. Then I showed people where it come from, and people were kind of impressed, or at least amused. I don't know if there's a better word for what people were, but it's the best that comes to mind. I mean, what do you think when you see these dogs talking about the regrets of letting someone you love die because of your pride? This game really doesn't screw around with its dark themes, and I love it. There's something even darker coming up later, so don't worry. We're just getting eased in at this point. It's gonna get a lot worse, trust me. Anyway, back to our teacher, who is pissed because, I don't know, we did exactly what we were told, so I don't know why he's upset with us. I then discover how other animals work in relation to the dogs. A lot of them are hostile, but hippos and elephants have a symbiotic relationship, where you can leave food for them and they just move over to it, allowing you to use them as bridges for the rest of the game. So I bring the teacher the second part of the ring that he wanted, and he ominously says that something is happening in the village. And it is. Apparently overnight the worst plague Pupperville has ever seen has swept through, and everything is fucked. We need to bring Dr. Dog a medical herb called Deflungi. That sounds like something you'd make up on the spot. I found it! Ha! The local witch finds me, and she says that the Deflungi can reduce the symptoms, but it won't cure them. But witchcraft can do that, obviously. Oh god, now Dr. Dog is sick. This is all very dramatic. This is like season 4 of The Walking Dead. I don't know if I signed up to this. Dr. Dog is now dying from the flu, but thankfully Obama busts through the front door and wait, no, sorry, it's Obaba. Sorry, that was a typo. I got my own hopes up there. Anyway, she says that bad oglu is mixed into the river water. I haven't a clue what bad oglu is. I googled it in the hopes that I could just say and look smarter than I actually am, as if I knew it all along, but I couldn't find a result other than the Dog Island. I'm just going to assume that it was made up for this game. Obaba gets rid of the oglu. We don't see how or get told what oglu is. I'm just going to take her word for it that she did anything at all. But yeah, we can be thankful for that. So Obaba then takes the time to tell us why Dr. Poten doesn't like her. So Poten had a girlfriend who looked strikingly like me, oddly enough, and she got sick. Apparently Obaba and Poten argued extensively over how to cure her, and they unfortunately didn't quite get around to actually curing her. I do like that this exposition is given to Dr. Dog whilst he's delirious from fever and everyone just loudly barks in his face. I'm sure he's having a wonderful time right now. Dr. Dog tells us that he doesn't actually hate Obaba, but she just sort of reminds him of how shit everything was, and how much of a dick he was for neglecting his patient due to his professional disagreements. To be fair on Dr. Dog, if someone came to me and said it's bad Oglu that's doing this, and I couldn't find any reference to Oglu in any medical book, I probably wouldn't listen to them either. But in this universe, Obaba is right about these things, so I don't know. I mean, he was asked to put a lot of faith in something that seemingly needs to be proven. They decide that they need to put this shit behind them and work together towards doing a good job saving and helping other people in her memory, and this will make her happy from beyond the grave. Some time passes, enough to cure everyone apparently, and Dr. Dog knows a way to cure our little brother. Now we need to go and find a white flower. Christ, this is like Red Dead Redemption, but in reverse, where running around collecting herbs saves your family instead of distracting you from it. Well, after battling a bear for it, I returned with the white flower. Well, I got the cure for my brat brother, and now we're going home to fix him. So, I'm gonna be honest, I did some research on this game whilst playing it, and noticed, in passing, that this game was listed as taking 14 hours to complete. I refuse to believe that a game like this would take 14 hours to complete. I assumed that whoever wrote that was just being slow. On most walkthroughs, this is considered the halfway point in the game. This is kind of true in a narrative perspective, but we're a long way before we finish the rest of this game. I love this shot of the dogs just sailing along like Rose and Jack on the Titanic. The pirate captain is pleasantly surprised to see me, given that the last time we spoke, I jumped into a stormy ocean and was never seen again. So, Emilio has a disease that cannot be cured, even by the best doctor in the region. I don't know what multiple islands clumped together like this would be considered as, so I'm just going to call it a region. He's about to give up, but then we have this bright idea to go out and find a legendary flower that cures all diseases. Oh, thank you, Doctor. We risk our asses to drag you back here to apply modern medicine and science to this conundrum, and you send us after a magic flower. Maybe we should just go and get Santa Claus to give us a hand whilst we're at it. You know, hedge our bets. Well, at least Dr. Dog is going to stay with Emilio and help him ease off his symptoms, so we can be thankful for that. Captain Gold City tells us that it's okay. Gwen is totally going to be safe with him this time. You know, after last time when she fell overboard and almost drowned in a terrible storm? Well, I think the Wanna Dog feels a bit bad for last time, and he just sort of wants to let me ride up front and not pester me with chores anymore. So I guess I'm quite happy about all this. So we go back to the island and we cut to Alex and Amalia, who want to know what happened. I inform them that Emilio is going to get worse with time unless he gets this legendary flower. Honestly, this sounds like something my shite GP would tell me just to avoid having to see me. I like how Amalia shares my sentiment, like we're chasing the existence of something that is legend. It's like not treating cancer and instead telling someone's son to sail to Greece and look for a minotaur horn because grinding it into dust and snorting it might be the cure for cancer. Like, there's a lot of holes in this. Anyway, Alex suggests we go and see Obaba the Witch Doctor, which is a sensible piece of advice, probably the first I've had all day. Our little Soot Sprite friend suggests that we should visit the tree he planted in the middle of town. Now it looks like a twig. It's seemingly growing pretty nicely because of what we're doing, so we should probably keep that up. So when we get back home, Patasi kind of offloads his backstory onto us, and he hasn't been entirely honest up until now. He's basically been banished for being a little shit in the Ant world, and so the Queen Ant kicked him out and told him not to come back until he grew an Ant tree in reparation for chopping down the ones in the Ant world. Now, normally I'd say fair enough, but the Ant Queen basically sets him up to fail. She sent him to a world where he's not visible by its inhabitants, and gave him a task that requires him to interact with its inhabitants. Only one of two characters in this whole game can see him, and only you can properly see him. The other two just vaguely sense his presence, or something to that effect. Bear in mind, he was acting up because he felt ignored and that his existence and acknowledgement of which depended entirely on his bad behaviour. He needed some sort of assurance that people would still notice and care about him if he stopped doing this. So Queenie here sends him to a world where he's invisible. So in short, she banished him from everything he's ever known and trapped him in an alien world where he's basically a ghost and gave him a task that he can't possibly do. All to punish him for acting out because he felt ignored. That's like God in the Old Testament level of cruel and unusual punishment. Jesus Christ. We go and see Obaba about the legendary magic flower. She tells us that we need to become a legendary sniff master in order to find it. A sniff master is what this guy with the tiny hat talked about, but I don't think he can get me there. It was only really at this point that I realised that he was meant to be an Asian martial arts master or something like that. Maybe a Chinese monk or something. I don't know, I'm not that great with my whole Asian culture, but you probably understand what I mean. It is kind of funny that this is the case because I legit thought that this was a propeller hat or something of that nature. Patazi insisted on talking you through everything that you've just talked about to make sure that you understand it before the dialogue can end. Now, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes in RPG games when you've talked for ages with an NPC, and you either can't follow what they're saying or zone out halfway through, this would be a kind of useful feature in the game. It's just kind of annoying in this game, especially when I'm being quizzed on things that I just literally heard like a minute ago, when the instructions aren't really that complicated. Maybe this serves a purpose for really young players? But I don't really remember being that stupid when I was 7, never mind when this game came out in 2006. I'd beaten Final Fantasy X-2 by myself with no real assistance, so I think I could handle a game like this. Maybe a kid younger than 7 might find this useful, but 7-year-old me would have been like, yep, I totally followed everything you said. I literally beat the shit out of Chairman Drek last Christmas. I don't need a reminder. So, Yi Lu tells me that there was a point to collecting the ring fragments after all. Huzzah! Huzzah! We put the ring together and show it to Rode at the dojo, and he'll take us on as his apprentice. We find the third piece of the ring, happy days! Now we're good enough to be trained by Master Splinter instead of Kirby the Fifth Turtle. Yi Lu informs me that I can listen to his backstory if I like. I was tempted to click no just to make things awkward, but sure, why not? Maybe I can learn something. Wasn't much to learn, just don't be an overconfident dickhead and assume you're a gift from God because you're decent at something. Maybe a lot of Twitch streamers might be able to benefit from this lesson. My problem is the opposite. I tend to believe that I'm a fuck up even when I'm doing reasonably well. Anyway, his downfall seems to be that his teacher just ignored him and didn't teach him shit. And there's apparently a lesson for him to learn in all of this. I've had bosses like that before. I empathise with Yi Lu. Oddly enough, it is a lesson that comes up a lot in Asian games. Like, Troubleshooter had the same sort of dynamic, where the main character gets ignored and his teacher seems to think that he should have learnt something whilst being ignored and become better at his craft, because his teacher refused to teach him for no reason. And it's kind of the same in this game. I wonder if it's like some weird thing that a lot of people in Japan and Korea just go through. I make it to Zumi Village, home to the Great Sniffing Dojo. I buy a new hat and go to the dojo, and Rode immediately greets me and starts off our relationship by talking purely about how sniffing is an art and how I need to train. Yeah, dickhead, I know that I need to train. That's why I'm here. So I explain my situation. He deduces from it that I want to be his pupil and learn to be a sniff master so I can learn how to find a plant that will save my brother's life. You'd think that this would make them see the urgency in what I'm doing, but everyone acts like I have a passing interest and have all the time in the world to just stand around and talk about sniffing things. Keeping in the theme of this, he asked me to bring him a flower vase. Yeah, sure, mate. My little brother can just hold his breath after his lungs stop working. Let me get you a stupid vase. I meet a giraffe in the fields, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, as we learn how animals work in the dog islands. You see, I was under the impression that dogs are sentient, and the rest are just, you know, animals. The hippos, for example, just ate what we put out in front of them, and bears and snakes just attack us. So far that theory has been sound, but giraffes broke my entire understanding of how animals work here. Giraffes talk and have some sort of society, and yeah, all the giraffes that you meet just stand around in fields, not really doing much. This giraffe is in a bit of a bind. He's lost a special item called the Giraffe Note that contains text so important that it affects every giraffe on the planet. He asked me to find it and bring it back so that his mother doesn't wring his long neck. I find the note and return it to the giraffe, and my reward for the quest is that he lets me keep the note. Now this note is some sort of contract that binds all giraffes to help me upon seeing it. That's so weird. Like, imagine walking down the street and someone holds up a piece of paper that compels you to help that person because some rando in China gave it to them. Ah! I find the stupid vase and give it to the dojo dog. He says that he'll train me or something. I'd be mad, but every giraffe in the universe now owes me a life debt, so I got something good out of all this stupidity. We then meet a Dalmatian who has no sense of direction. He's basically me as a dog. He starts off by asking us to deliver something because it would take him hours to get there, and the delivery would ideally need to be made before dark. He does actually get there himself at around midnight, so yeah, he made the right call asking us to go ahead. He asks us to see Alex the librarian dog because he knows everything, until he doesn't. So in order to fix this, we need to build a Dalmatian a compass. To build a compass, we need a magic map stone. So that's what we need to sniff out. Don't know why we can't just buy Cruella's next handbag here a compass from the market, but that's not an option, I'm afraid. It's on a cliff, but thankfully Giraffes and I have the same relationship that Mr. Nimbus has with the police. Before we save this dog from his, I want to say, visuospatial dyspnosia? I mean, he's got the topographical disorientation of that disorder nailed down, and a lot of the other symptoms would be hard to identify in a dog because he can't dress himself or use tools. Right, anyway, you see this boar? This is the first enemy in the game that's just, well, it defies the rules of combat. The rule up until now is that if something isn't facing you, you can walk up behind it and bark and it goes down. Not this thing. It has eyes in the back of its head and will freak out and attack you. Now you can avoid the boar, so this isn't any big deal, but it is an omen of things to come. Whilst fucking around with the boar, I notice a dog in a Peter Davidson hat. She'll be important later. I return with the magic map stone and Boris informs me that he can use it to take me anywhere on the island, and basically becomes the fast travel system from here on. He's kinda like Jimmy in Fractured But Whole. However, this dog doesn't have superpowers or any sort of vehicle, so you're basically paying for a travelling companion here. How this Dalmatian fast travels you, I don't really know. Maybe you get on his back and he carries you there? I have to pay 1 woof for this service, so I don't really want to use it unless we have to. Early game this isn't really necessary, but it does become a very valuable service towards the end. So this dog is Lady Christina. She's posh and feels like she can tell people what to do. Like she's some sort of royalty. She wants us to bring her a lotus flower to draw the bees away. I'm able to build a bridge to the lotus flower. I achieved this by putting an apple on a tree stump and then jumping on an elephant's back after it started chowing down. Whilst I'm just using this thing as a stepping stone, it does make me question, like, are elephants sentient in this universe, like giraffes and dogs? We speak to bears at one point in the game, so I guess all animals are human-level sentient in this game? I don't know, I think this is just something I'll regret looking into if I go too deep into it. So let's just move on. I bring her the lotus flower and it causes the bees to attack her. I could put the lotus flower on the stump as asked, but hilariously, if you don't press the X button to advance the dialogue, she runs around in a circle for a while being chased by bees. Okay, fine, let's go save stuck-up Steph. So, now that she can go into the desert, she's decided not to go. Okay, now I'm compelled by something to bring her to Noble or she'll blow a gasket or something. Anyway, after I have to wait for her to change out of a hat into another hat, I learn that she's royalty. A princess to be exact. Huh, dog royalty. You know, that's a thing I've come across before. I remember Ross Scott having an award for it on the game dungeon. Well, here it is again. Huzzah!
Oh, huzzah. Fucking huzzah.
I have to admit, I would like to see it more, especially in non-dog settings. She informs us that she's a collector of bugs and fish, and she opens the path to collecting. This is actually very useful for making money in the game, though I didn't utilize it until late game when I actually started to need money. I open my mail and Dr. Dog tells me that my brat brother is doing fine, but his condition will eventually worsen over time. So, you know, no pressure. I approach Amalia and she's having trouble with more victory dogs. I step in and they tell me that I need to prove myself to them before they'll listen to me. These guys just give me that "you want to be cool like us" vibe that you see in 90s bullies. What's kind of funny is that they don't even agree amongst themselves that this is how it should be done, and they're constantly arguing. They're in dire need of leadership, which is basically their whole dynamic. You find out that an old dog named Bill used to be their leader. We should probably ask him about what's going on. We find Bill on the beach, who is kind of like a washed up old gangster. He's retired and become a fisherman, but he does still have his Victory Gang badge, and he's willing to vouch for you, getting you in a few places. I found his badge and came back to him. He pays me for my trouble, but he says that he's not got much by way of clout with the victory dogs these days. He's kinda like a relic. We're stopped on our way in by Camus. He ain't dealing with no punk dog until you prove to him that you're better than him at hide and seek. Man, these guys are just one badass gang, I tell you. Anyway, finding him requires you to use your sniffing game, as you'd probably expect. Could you even beat a sniffer dog in a game of hide and seek? Somehow I doubt it. Not unless you got really clever and masked your scent or were very downwind. There's 3 dogs to find in order to win the game. This guy has to be the most intimidating. A small Pekingese in hipster glasses wearing a hat he stole from his granddad? Yikes, wouldn't want to be stuck with him in a dark alley. Anyway, Camus admits that we're okay or something and gives you his badge. You need to collect these badges in order to combine their power and control the victory dogs. We find Amalia having a go at her brother Alex. He's in trouble because he never leaves his house and just reads, I guess. Now, normally I'd be on his side and tell Amalia to back off, but I think she might have a point here. Look at Alex's book house. It's not a house, it's a tent. A tent with no floor, no furniture, no provisions, no bed. This guy just basically sleeps rough and copes about it. Now, it does imply that he keeps things in there, mostly books, but I don't see any. My best guess is that he has a mind palace like Sherlock, and he just sits in his book tent imagining himself in a huge library, trying to ignore the fact that he probably smells like trench foot. No, we need to save Alex. We need to get him out of here. He says that he will indeed come out if we solve his riddle and bring the item that he's describing back to him. What he's describing is obviously a candle, but having to bring him a physical candle does kind of complicate this. This is the only time you have to do this. I honestly think that the dude just secretly needs a new candle, because where else does he get light? But where the hell do I get a candle? Well, that's tomorrow's problem. Good luck with that, future me. So, anyway... Wait, what? What the... No! No! This scene again? The same scene is playing back again. The game must have put me in an earlier state and now I'm fucked. It must have set me back at least 2 hours. What the fuck? Oh, thank God, it's just a reused cutscene. God damn it, don't scare me like that. Right, so Nurse Francis is afraid of blood. The brave fruit work, but it's basically potent. It worked very well for a little while, but now it stopped working and now she's worse than she was before. We need to solve this by going to the source. Well, she tells us that she believes that she knows the cause. Now, I won't lie, I made a few jokes whilst playing the game, and maybe once or twice in the video about this getting dark. And this is where I kind of eat my own words. So, her phobia of blood comes from childhood trauma, where she and her friend were playing, then got into an argument, then had a fight, and then she accidentally hurt her friend, who went still and started bleeding. She ran away and left her friend to die and never saw her again. Jesus fucking Christ. It gets worse though, because the girl's family apparently moved away the next day, and she's lived with this murder on her mind for like, however long. Probably like 20 years in dog years. Anyway, we need to go to Zumi Village and find the family, knock on, and maybe let them know, hey, we like murdered your daughter several years ago. Sorry about that. We get there and find a dog named Elaine, who oddly enough has the same name as our murder victim. And she isn't a ghost either, so this is a good sign. We might be able to get off on technicality here. Anyway, Elaine is completely chill about the attempted murder thing, so Francis can get over her phobia of blood now. We then bump into Curtis, who licks his lips like all victory dogs do, which is a bit of a contradiction, because dogs don't have lips, at least not in the same way that humans do. Honestly, the lip licking reminds me more of the creepy tongue roll thing that Teabag does in Prison Break. So I have to catch some sort of rare fish in order to impress him. Except it's not a rare fish, it's just a fish. Okay, so I did fishing. You just mash the button and keep the fish in the middle. It's one of the easiest things to do in the game. Even when it's more difficult, it's still quite simple and not that challenging. I don't hate it, especially given how some fishing minigames make me want to drive an actual fish hook into my eyes. I bring Alex's candle back whilst I'm out here. Anyway, he decides to step out and stop living like a homeless man, so I guess we made some progress. Alex asked me another riddle. What needs to be spanked on its head to be useful? I know this one, it's Loz. Oh shit, I've gone and done fucked up now, Clark's onto me. I do really like these guys because they're like, oh yeah, tough guy? Well, I don't hang out with losers who don't catch bugs. Oh, you don't have bug catching gear? Here, you can have mine. Like, they're the nicest asshole gang on the planet. Anyway, I caught one. Bug catching is a little bit like fishing, it's not too hard. Clark is amazed that I caught one. I'm almost as cool as he is now. Anyway, we talked to Peter Puppy from Letterland, and he tells us that he's in love with Amalia. This guy's pretty rich, so his chances are good. Anyway, we have to find him a romantic drop in the wilderness. This reminds me a lot of the Fire Ant Queen pheromones from Fallout 3, and it kind of makes me question the validity of the consent if the person sleeps with you because of something you took that affects them. In Torchwood, there's a guy who found an alien perfume that made any human on the planet want to have sex with him. So, he slept with half of Cardiff. This kind of goes into that territory for me. So, we enter the desert. This is where you find yourself dying from heat stroke if you don't stay hydrated at the oasis. It's not too bad of a mechanic, and I never found myself dying from heat stroke. Mainly because this map area is so small. You can usually save yourself by just leaving the map area and coming back, which also resets your heat gauge. Anyway, I found his Rehypnol. I mean his magic romance drops, but he's still not going to work up the nerve to talk to her because they don't cure him of being a pussy. We talked to this guy Jeremy, who is basically like Rain from Mortal Kombat, only somehow more lame. He basically changes the weather using his magic. But his magic doesn't work. Without a magic staff, he can't really do much. And we need to help him by taking him to the four corners of the island and exposing his staff to each of them. It's as tedious as it sounds. No, shit. No. Oh, no. So I tried to go further north into the dry valley, but very quickly learned that I can't. There's a sinkhole in front of the Dry Valley region that just swallows you up, and there's literally no way around it. Even though it looks like there's a way around it if you really try, And I originally thought that I just wasn't being careful enough and I could walk around it, but no, it is a dead end. I go back to Master Road to ask him about this whole Sniff Master gig, as it's been like an hour since I've addressed any of it. Anyway, to become a Sniff Master now, I need to help people in need. Can I not just get my dad to pay for it or something? Fine, okay. So yeah, these optional side quests aren't optional. You need to do them, become better at sniffing. Don't ask me, I didn't write the rules. It took me a while to realise this, and I ended up just prancing around looking for some way to advance the game. I go back to our bull terrier friend who asked for help with his fishing. I like how this guy just always sighs. I can relate. Anyway, he wants a kind young lass to give him crabs. Guess he's feeling nostalgic for his youth or something. Straw Hat Luffy here wants us to catch a marlin. To do this, we need to get them bluefish and flounder to use as bait. Okay, simple enough. It wasn't simple enough. It took me a bloody age, as there's no control over what fish you catch, so I just catch the same fish endlessly for hours just trying to find this one fish that I need for the quest. Anyway, the Ankh tree is now bigger because I helped some fishermen and a furniture shop. I go back to Road, who informs me that I've outgrown him. In order to qualify for his teachings, I need to go to the Sphinx in the desert who will give me a certificate. I like to imagine it's basically a giant printer and the certificate comes out of its mouth. Anyway, when I get to this ancient rock, it tells me that I need to find an ivory key in order to... Oh, for fuck's sake. Guess we need to go kill some elephants. There, I found your stupid key. Oh, what? This thing doesn't print out the certificate? It just tells you to dig it up? You know how disappointing this is? Bastard. Absolute bastard. There, I got your stupid certificate. I backtrack down to this green meadow and find that there's a broken bridge over the river. The game doesn't continue in one path, but two that kind of loop around, but not really at the very end. Anyway, I spent ages fucking around in the desert thinking that I can advance, only to find out what I was meant to do was backtrack to the first area of the game and think to look for Santa. Silly me. Anyway, Santa says that we should find the lumberjack and bother him about fixing this thing. He says that we need to go to the furniture shop to get nail to fix the bridge. Anyway, after 20 minutes of construction and contracting and gathering materials and building, we finally did it. We have a bridge. Onto the Highlands. So, I find myself at the dojo of my next master. Given how helpful the last one was, I'm sure I'll really need this guy. Well, this guy is actually considerably more helpful than the last guy. It's not saying much, but he is. So, apparently, becoming a Sniff Master isn't enough to find the legendary flower. We also need to grow an Ankh tree. It's a really good thing that I met Patazi, or I'd be screwed right now. Speaking of Patazi, this is one of the few characters who can see him. I also have to learn 100 smells, which seems like a monumental task, but I'm pretty sure I was almost there by now. So it's fine, I got this. Also, to become better at sniffing things, you need to help as many people as possible. Okay, I signed up to be the world's greatest sniffer dog, not Jesus Christ. I think there's been some cutbacks in town and you're just trying to save on public services by making me do all this shit. Then we need to obtain the Book of the Sniff Master, which comes in 2 parts because Harry Potter did it? I don't know. Oh, and I also need to get the Sniff Master medal. Alternatively, I could just write a letter to Mother telling her that I tried, but it was too much like hard work. Yeah, that seems like the better option right now. You need to find the Book of the Sniff Master to find the Medal of the Sniff Master, and hopefully if you're proactive, you'll find the 100 cents along the way. Anyway, we can't really do any of that now, but we can help Alice. First things first though, going to see if I can drop this boulder rock. Huh, boulder and sheep. I feel like this is the setup to something.
The fastest playthrough ever. 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Damn! I'm a genius. I'm an evil genius mastermind who... Oh dear. Shit.
I find a gnome village called Chiro Village, which is actually the start of a big cave complex. We'll get to it later. Anyway, Alice is Prince Peter's maid, and she needs our help to cover up one of his crimes. If it involves an island and some rich guy, I'm out of here. Anyway, the prince can avoid a lesson in personal responsibility because he fucked around with one of the noble's things and broke it. I have to go to the Cave of Blunders and risk my life trying to find a replacement. This is why I hate rich people. The caves are mostly fine. The scenery is a bit dull because it's a cave, but they do their best with it. In more recent games, caves could look more significantly interesting, with lighting and intelligent level design, but this was 2006, and admittedly, the game doesn't really have many possibilities for that, so I'll give it a pass. What I won't give a pass are the bats. Yes, it's a video game, so bats are the worst thing in the world. If you go anywhere near them, they swoop down and attack you.
Yes, swooping is bad.
If you can't outrun them or get snagged on something or the controls fuck up, you're taking a hit. They're so overly hostile as well. They attack the second that you're in range, and there's no method of sneak attack on them that I'm aware of. I'd like to say that the worst thing in the game is the bats. Oh no. No, they're the harbinger of what's to come. I found the stupid blue rose. Yay. And damn it, these damn bats have whittled down my health to the point where they've killed me, and now I've lost all my items. I don't even get to see how a bat flies off with a pumpkin in its feet either. This is the worst day ever, and it's all the monarchy's fault. Anyway, Alice thanks me for preventing justice and gives me 2 woofs of my trouble. Yeah, lady, that's not gonna cover all of the items that I lost in the cave. Nor will it wash away the fact that I know that your prince is a thieving vandal, and I'll happily tell the Blue Rose's owner if I don't see some serious dough. Actually, nah, that's too much work, forget it, just take the stupid thing and fuck off. I get a letter from Amadio who tells me that he misses me more than he thought he would. That's kinda sweet, assuming that he doesn't want to hop into my figurative pants, because he needs to do better than that if he does. I then get a letter of assurance from Emilio telling me what a great doctor Dr. Poten is. He must be having some real influence on the boy because his handwriting is identical at this point. Emilio's birthday is coming up and he'd like my hat. Like, that style anyway. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if the game just picks the one that you wore the most. I'd probably have to do another playthrough or something in order to find out. Or maybe find someone else on the planet who's played this game who isn't me. And I don't think I'll manage either anytime soon. So this is Dorothy. And she wants to stay healthy no matter how unhealthy she has to get there. I feel like Dorothy was ahead of her time. There are so many diet and health fads these days, and the deeper you get down the rabbit hole, the worse it gets. I mean, cat shit coffee is basically mainstream nowadays. I learned from this part of the game that you can actually find items before the related quest, and they just go into your quest item inventory and just stay there. This means that when you enter a new area, you can just stock up on these, and then you'll breeze through the side quest by just happening to have the super rare item in your back pocket, like a really contrived story. So this does save me quite a bit of time. Next, the furniture dog needs me to find some cork for the princess's furniture, which fortunately, I'd found some on my travels, so you just automatically give it to them and you succeed in the quest. So I do a few more quests like this and come across Santa Hat Dog again. He needs me to put some heavy stones on these pillars to open up the ancient door, so we can explore more of the caves. I'd question this, but ancient stone tech innit? I find the last one and it opens up. This game almost reminds me of Ico at times, with scenes focusing on ancient devices groaning to life and opening the way for you, sometimes with mystical music playing over it. Our reward is being able to access the Snowy Plains, which is the furthest region on the left side of the island. There's 3 layers to it, kinda like the desert, and the 2 are separated by a canyon, which is kinda crazy when you think about it, because the difference between an Arctic tundra and a desert is just a rocky canyon. Like, imagine if the Grand Canyon separated Alaska and Death Valley. Like, that's insane. I hope you like snow because there's a lot of it going forward. I dug around this tree for a while hoping that I'd find something. Sadly I didn't. It doesn't help that these god-awful polar bears attack you if you go anywhere near the country of residence. Kind of like in the desert, temperature needs to be taken into account. So you get colder by the second. You'll freeze and die if you don't jump into a hot spring. I can't help but think that having a warm bath in the middle of the Arctic might not be the smartest idea, because you'll get out dripping wet and be twice as cold as when you jumped in a minute ago. We then encountered this guy in Deerstalker hat, who informs us that there's an iceberg blocking his village. We need to melt it in order to pass. The path clears, and Siegfried... Yeah, him. He directs us to the snow village. I take it aside to point out that these villages are really well named. I mean, no one's gonna mistake Snow Village. We all know which one that is. And I doubt anyone would have trouble finding it. It's in the snow. We immediately bump into Gay Cowboy Dog, who wants us to have a sled race to prove which one is stronger. Who am I, Balto? Pull your own damn sled. This took me several attempts, but this time it's mostly due to my stupidity. Although this minigame isn't exactly the easiest in the bunch. You see, in my infinite wisdom, I thought hitting the red block on the quick time event was a bad thing, but it's actually the best possible outcome. I would be harsher on myself, but red usually means bad. I feel like yellow or green would have been a better pick, if I'm honest. But yeah, I win the sled race. By the way, fuck whoever makes you watch the 8-year-long cutscene between you losing and having to watch the Gay Cowboy Dog do his "your winner" pose, and then have you jump through a load of hoops in order to get another shot. Just give me a retry button, damn it. Gordon rewards us with a lie that Jeremy is looking for me and that he's in the snow village now. Jeremy is looking for me, but he's not in the snow village. He's back in Pupsville. My soulful dancing is gonna make you groove. Yeah, I won't argue with that. Jeremy calls forth the tides to power his staff at the beach. He also has to do this by the river, the lake, and finally the tundra. He apologises for making us go all over the world and compensates us as best he can. At least he recognises that this was a pain in the ass. It's nice when quest givers at least do acknowledge that. And it's not just in a haha we wasted your time kind of way either. We go to the frozen lake where we're too heavy to cross it, so we have to follow a penguin as he leads us across. He goes especially fast, so it's vital that we keep up. So of course I don't. Oops. I finally make it. Huzzah! There's a couple of quest items on the side of the lake, and you can contribute a decent amount to your 100 smells. We get our roaming country singer dog who has a bit of a dilemma. Dude can't sing. Daisy, Daisy, da 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 da. No, not that way. He just can't physically sing because of his sore throat. Well, it just so happens that I'm carrying throat drops. Never thought I'd be in a position where I was dealing drugs to a musician. I guess all roads just lead to this in the end. We return to Master Tao, who tells me that I need to go out and find the first book of the Sniff Master. That shouldn't be too hard, I guess? I found it on the other side of that frozen lake. It was a pain in the ass to find, but I managed it. The next task is to find the second book of the Sniff Master. Are you fucking kidding me? Why didn't you tell me where both books were? So that I could just find them both. Why did you send me to get one, bring it back, and then go, oh, there's a second part, go out and find that? If you just told me what I was looking for, I would have found it myself. Jesus Christ. We get back to the Ankh tree and find that it's grown a lot. I kind of like this as a progression system. It's kind of wholesome and you know where you stand as far as game progression actually goes. He says that the tree has powers and it's not an ordinary tree. But I don't quite understand how he's only just worked this out when it's from his world. This is genuinely a surprise to him. It's like me going to another world and planting an apple tree and then being like, oh, I get it. This apple tree produces apples. Like, did Patazi not pay any attention to his own world for the possible centuries that he's lived there before this point? Well, he uprooted some of these. Did he not pay attention to what he was digging up? I guess not, that's why he dug them up, but still, you'd think he would have detected something off of them. I get some more letters. My brat brother is sick, but I'm fairly sure that this is a grift so that he can guilt me into sending him some swordfish. I'm not biting until Dr. Poten sends me a page from the medical journal he read that said that swordfish especially cures this illness. I sent my brother my iconic hat because he wanted it as a birthday present. I actually thought this was something that happened earlier in the game, but seemingly I Mandela affected myself. We meet this husky called Will, another one of the victory dogs who wants to race us. This race minigame just has you sprint around like you normally would. There's not really that much to it. Get fucked, yeah! My reward is progress in this quest line, but also to be told that in order to advance any further in it, I'll need to access the dry canyon. You know, the bit past that awful sinkhole from earlier. We meet this dog called Sair who has a solution to our sinkhole problem. We help him and find out that he's like the sand version of Jeremy, the wizard who controls the weather from earlier. Maybe together they could make a Mortal Kombat game. I do like that the cutscene shows Gwen running off, but then the next dialogue thing shows her snapping back to the wizard to talk to him. And now we enter hell.
Yay, we're all going to hell!
Death Valley. Abandon all hope ye who enter here territory. Everything here wants you fucking dead. There's vultures and snakes everywhere. And they are especially proactive about getting you if you show up. But the worst of all is the bison. You see, at some point in our life, we, as individuals, made a choice. And that choice made the bison so enraged that he vowed to destroy us on sight. He will charge at you from the other side of the perceived world and will harass you until you drop dead. His honour will not be satisfied until you cry out in despair for daring to exist after your trespass against him. So what choice did we make that gave him this vendetta? How did we make him feel so vindicated in finding us and destroying us at first opportunity? Well, the answer to that is, we were fucking born. I swear to Christ, this bison is just an asshole. He runs straight at you and will not leave you alone. He has the highest aggro range of anything in the game, possibly of any game I've ever played in my life. So sneaking up on him is near impossible, and any damage that you do to him is temporary at best. I reloaded this part because this is bullshit, no pun intended, and this stupid fucking bison killed me so many times, more so than anything else in the game combined. It also doesn't help that a lot of quests require you to faff around trying to find sweet spots for sniffing, whilst this monstrosity is trying to murder you. I talked to this guy, Wilbur. He's particularly interested in the Star Festival. Now, this festival is actually really important to the plot, but it's not brought up again until like 5 hours after this. By the time it was, I barely remembered that anyone even talked about it before it was brought up. Anyway, right now he wants to fly something into the sky. Now, he does describe it as a hot air balloon, and I was sort of picturing a mission like that Red Dead Redemption 2 mission. But it's more like a Chinese lantern that he wants to make. Anyway, to build it, we need to bring him some burning water. This isn't Sharknado, so where am I supposed to get that? Oh, bugger it, I'll try to find some burning water, why not? I got an adorable letter from my brother because he got the hat that I sent him. We go back to Peter, who wants to declare his love for Amalia and give her a special hibiscus flower. It only grows in the desert, so we'll have to head back out to find it. I go to my local bar to talk to this guy in the starry top hat. He's a circus ringmaster whose circus went to shit 5 years ago. Remember that bison buffalo thing I mentioned earlier? Well, this is where that shit becomes painful. We need to get the ringmaster's outfit, and it's found at the very heart of the bison's territory. Okay, we'll be methodical. We'll start by sniffing here and... Oh, Jesus Christ! Well, I got the hibiscus flower, so that's one thing ticked off. So, here's me attempting to get the suit. In order to do it, I needed to work out exactly where it was in the short amount of time that I had to live, or at the very least make some progress in narrowing it down. The best comparison that I can think of is Peter Capaldi in Heaven Sent. That's basically where I'm at now. Just punching a wall and dying on loop. It's just painful and frustrating. Oh my god, I have it! It only took me 13 minutes, but I finally got it. We go to see Peter, who instantly gets friend-zoned. In fact, he doesn't even get friend-zoned. He gets an offer of maybe you can work your way up to the friend zone if you work for it. Damn, Amalia, that's brutal. Fucking brutal. I approve. I bring Wilbur his burning water and he builds a Mysterio helmet that he launches into space. It explodes and sets the whole village on fire, which gets us into trouble with the mayor. Oops. You know, one day science will forget you, Mr. Mayor, whereas it'll look to us as gods. Just you wait. I return the ringmaster's outfit to him and he mentions that he'd like a bear to work with. There's apparently a tamed bear out there that we can just lure out with honey like he's Winnie the Pooh. We go to the dry village where this Doberman is waiting for us. He'll only endorse us if we're better at football than him. So, this has just basically become Animal Soccer World. Great, just great, I really wanted to live that. Well, my match day reflexes came back to me and I won the day. Huzzah!
Huzzah!
I beat him and he says that he'll endorse me. This makes me leader of the Victory Dogs at this point. I just need to get it formalised. Maybe get some business cards. Update my LinkedIn, you know, the usual. Patazzi asked me if I'm ready to move on, because I'm apparently going to move the story forward or something. Admittedly, I have no idea what he's talking about. The world doesn't change when you start moving the plot forward, and quests don't get cut off. This is usually the kind of warning you get when you're about to move from one place to another and can't go back, or characters and quests move around and you can't complete them in the next instance. But that isn't the case here. So I have no idea why my little Patapon friend here is talking like this. We find Kuma from Tekken, who is apparently starving to death. So we feed him and promise to save him from starvation by giving him a job, in which he'll basically perform in front of a crowd to avoid starvation. There's just no way that you can do circuses without making them exploitative, is there? We go to the snow village and talk to Santa Dog. He's hungry and wants special grapes, which I just so happen to have. So after doing so much with Henry the Santa Dog, he gives you a painting. This painting is meant to be a reward, but it's more like a cursed object that you regret ever putting your hands on. Case in point, hands. This guy starts off like any other character. He's an artist and wants colours to inspire him to paint. Sounds borderline wholesome. But then he decides that he wants that painting that Henry gave to you. Because Henry is his idol and he wants to cherish it. He offers you $1 for it. No, I'm not kidding. He also insults you and says that you shouldn't have the painting because you're too stupid to appreciate it. Which is just the icing on this cake. Like, when you offer a bargain, offer a crap price, then tell the person that they're stupid. Oh, great master, teach me your ways. When you refuse the offer, like any sane person would, he apparently comes back with a better offer. But at this point, it wasn't about the money, it was the principle of the thing. I'm not giving this painting to this stupid asshole after he wastes my time with pointless side quests, offers me chump change and then insults me. Get fucked, man. I gave it to the next person who asked for it, who had a better reason to ask for it, and he also didn't insult me. We bring the bear to our circus friend who shits a brick, but the bear is pretty reasonable about his exploitation. So this guy has several quests where he needs a role filling and you have to bring the appropriate person. You only get 2 options and it's pretty obvious. In this case, he needs the role of a singer fulfilling. Now, you might want me to select the worst person for the job because it's funny. Well, I did try that and it results in him popping off in a way that's kind of funny, but then it basically ends the quest and possibly fucks up his entire quest line forever. I wouldn't really call that worth it, so I reloaded to a previous save state and did it properly. In this case, he asked for the singer, and there's only one man who fits that bill. After all of that faffing, I returned to Victory Dog HQ. It looks like it was going to kick off, but then they begged me to be their leader. So obviously I tell them to fuck off and leave. Okay, I lied, I accepted, but I only accepted because I was expecting the game to delay itself or flat out break if you refuse. Again, Patazi talks out of his ass and suggests that helping the dog and exploring the runic caverns is an either-or situation when it's really not. I wonder if this is how the game was meant to be at one point, but they changed it. Or if this is how it's meant to be now, but the programming doesn't reflect that. Like, maybe a 0 is where a 1 should be and it causes this to not take effect. I'm glad it didn't, honestly, as there's no reason to implement such a thing. You'd have to do multiple playthroughs then, and I can't be arsed with that. So, then we get to the romance part of the game. Yeah, the Dog Island did this before BioWare made it cool. Now, something that's kind of odd about this game and its romances is basically just how they work and how they're set up in general. Nobody is shocked when I say that your romance differs depending on your gender, but for some reason, the male dog has one romance option, and the bitch gets 2 possible candidates for a boyfriend. Dudes have a quantity issue, and the ladies have a quality issue when it comes to a partner. This is very reflective of real life, I'm almost impressed. The male's choice is Amalia or celibacy. This means that if you don't think that Amalia is the perfect partner, you're shit out of luck, and she'll hate you forever, and you'll just have to settle for being an incel. The girl has to choose between 2 victory dogs, Camus and McCoy. The Doberman footballer, or the one that looks like Dale from The Walking Dead if he was an 80s porn director. Gee, I'm spoilt for choice. Can't I have both? I kid, I don't want either. I mean, both of these guys are losers from the same gang, so my best hope is that one of them will give up on the gang bullshit and get a real job. I'm assuming that Camus is the one that will do that, as he wears a necktie, so he's at least willing to work an actual job from the looks of it. McCoy could get a career as a footballer, but that's a pretty big if. And what's he going to do if he doesn't? Become a PE teacher and bully kids? Am I going to have to nurse his bruised ego for the rest of his life? No thanks. Why can't I have a real man like Mid? He actually has a music career, he's handsome and mysterious, he's fun to be around, but no, I have to marry down. I just hope the Victory Dogs don't have rules against workplace fraternization. Although I make the rules now. Maybe I should add that as a rule so I can just get out of doing this. You know, I was kind of tempted to do that, just say I won't participate in the romance thing, but admittedly, it's admittedly more content in the game, so I figured I'd go for it anyway and see where it led. I have to admit, I really hate to be the male dog more, because I don't know what I'd do in this situation. It's basically an arranged marriage. Can I date that dancer girl, Linda? She seems fun. There's characters like Andrea and Dorothy who don't seem to be married and don't seem to be doing much with their lives. Can I not date them? I'm not saying that every character in the game should be marryable like in Skyrim. Actually, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Hell, imagine if you could marry the princess like in Dragon Age and become king. That would have been awesome. But no, I'm here with these 2 losers drooling over me. And if I turn them both down, we'll have 2 more incels in the world. I'm taking one for the team, you all owe me. The dating mechanic is kind of nice, admittedly, where you basically go to the beach and sit there and look out onto the horizon, and you visibly grow closer to each other over time. It's the reverse of that scene setup from Citizen Kane where they drift apart visually, as well as relationship-wise. It's very deep and meaningful and stuff. You also gotta love that Camus doesn't even walk you home. He's just like, yep, that was fun. See ya. You see, guys, this is something to keep in mind. You always need to go that extra mile. If you can't be asked walking her home, what else are you gonna do for her? Realistically, this is the point in the relationship where the person will do the most for you, because they're trying to keep you. If they're cutting corners now, just imagine what they're going to be like in a few years. After finding him a strong man, the circus ringmaster offers to perform for us just outside of town. How exciting! Jesus, everyone looks so fucking miserable. Mission accomplished, I guess. Anyway, the ringmaster got his circus back and he's happy about that, so something can be taken from this. These guys have jobs, which is good for them, I guess. The chef at the local restaurants asked me if I'll give him Henry's painting so that his customers can enjoy it whilst eating at his restaurant, which seems like a more worthwhile cause than Mr. "Give me the painting because you're stupid." Anyway, we make a shocking discovery and a deep revelation at this point in the game. I'm really stupid. Like, I'm actually very fucking stupid, and I'm humbled at how profoundly stupid I am. Because it was at this point that after balancing my money to make sure that I could travel and buy items for an entire game, I remembered that collectors exist. When you find fruits and vegetables in the world, you can collect them, and they pay you for any duplicates. Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? But don't worry, I missed an even bigger money-making opportunity that I've also forgotten about, and we'll get to that later. I find this guy's hat for him in the rune caverns, and he informs me that the statue in there needs a Sniffmaster trinket in order to open. I see. Why the hell was I going around looking for books when this is way more important for my quest? I return to my master again, who says that we need to collect the Sniffmaster medal. Yeah, no shit we need to collect the Sniffmaster medal, why didn't I have it earlier? So, the second Sniffmaster book was behind one of the houses in the rune village. Mate, are you taking the piss? Could you not point that out the last time I was out there? Next, I need to explore some ruins, just ahead of the rune canyon. So yeah, this is going to become Indiana Bones very quickly. It's a deadly danger dungeon full of traps that I need to avoid, as well as dangerous creatures. Amazing. So we go back to my ankh tree, which is fully grown at this point. It's just kind of occurred to me that we didn't get planning permission to plant this thing. The mayor might just decide to chop it down at any point. Anyway, Patazi says that he's going to stick with me despite finishing the ankh tree, as he'd be a bit of a dick if he left now. In order to get to the Temple of Puzzles, we need to get through a place that I like to call the Valley of Certain Definite Inescapable Death. You might ask why this is, in particular, the Valley of Death. Ah! Okay, good, I made it. Well, I am worthy and the temple lets me in. I immediately noticed that the temple has really relaxing and calm music. I do like the aesthetics of it, keeping well within the dog universe theme and overall looking pleasant. I come to this altar where it apparently smells of fish. I need to offer an ancient fish up to the fish god. I have to get the ancient fish from outside, which is something I didn't realise because I was too busy trying not to die. Okay, I've got the fish. Now to get further inside. So, this part, in my personal opinion, is the hardest part of the temple, because you have to sniff out your objective, but there's a lot of time where you sniff into a dead end, and the game insists that what you're looking for can be found further on. but there's a wall in the way. Well, I pulled it off. It wasn't easy, even with a walkthrough, but at least it was one of those things that can be solved with enough time and patience. After finding the silver and gold dog statues and placing them on the respective pedestals, the door opens up. I swear that the way that some of this stuff looks and animates, it really reminds me of Ico. Inside, I found a Sniffmaster medal, and the game is nice enough to teleport me back to Master Tao so that he could direct me to the next part of the story. Tao explained that he was a Sniffmaster at some point, but he lost his sense of smell due to an accident. He doesn't elaborate further, unless he specifies. I'm going to assume that he was sniffing another dog's ass and he farted. If he doesn't like that, then he shouldn't vague post. So now I slot in the medal and it opens up the way, and what was blocking me before is now overcome. And inside this place is the Ancient Grove. It kinda reminds me of the Far Plane from Final Fantasy X. It might as well be heaven, as you can find almost every item in the game here. Some games have a cheat cell where you can just find every item in the game. You can usually only reach it by using cheat codes or sometimes a very clever exploit, but Dog Island just makes it part of the story. We need to find the ancient flower, although its scent is kind of unknown to us, so we need to sort of weed it out. No pun intended. So we find one, but it kinda looks like shit. Turns out it's not supposed to look like a Bellsprout with brain damage, but it's actually dying. There's like one in the world and it's dying. Fantastic. Fucking fantastic. Patazi suggests that we should take it to the Ant Queen, who will hopefully be able to revive it, or tell us how to revive it, or something. Anything. I really need something right now. Before that, I stop at Tao's dojo. Remember how I said that I was really stupid before for not knowing about collectors? Well, I completely forgot that my trainer pays me money every time I discover new scents, and I have a backlog of several dozen woofs. This meant that I had nearly 100 woofs that I hadn't collected from sniffing things. Oops. We got to the green meadow where the entrance to the Ankh world can be found. Apparently it was just in our backyard the whole time. I couldn't help but notice that running anywhere near this tree triggers the big endgame event. So like, you could really trigger this by accident without even realizing that you can do this. You do get the chance to back out, but still, it did take me by surprise. So this is the point in no return where things get batshit. I know this game has been totally grounded in reality and nothing weird has happened up until this point, but no, we're about to cross this threshold. You can kiss goodbye to normality and sense and logic and reason. As soon as you decide to go to the Ankh world, Sin from Final Fantasy X comes crashing down to Earth. This is a sky whale, and it's from the Ankh world. Apparently it's just decided to pop on over and fuck up all your shit. Well, I'll just leave the innocent dogs to deal with that. I've got a queen to see. I'm too important to deal with this crap. So, with the stakes so dire, we find out that the Ankh world can only be reached on the Ankh Road, which is a bunch of puzzles. First we get like an extreme hopscotch game where we have to jump on the right platform or we fall to our death. Remember, Jehovah starts with an I. Then you have to bring flowers over to a pedestal. This isn't too hard, but it is a fair bit of legwork. Then there's this one where you have to push down the right button to the right directions. Then I find a room where there's a door and a switch, but the switch is a fake switch and the real one is further back. What a pain in the ass. I open the gateway to the Ankh world and can finally advance. I just gotta not get killed by this crocodile. Shit, 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 shit. So, we made it. We get right to the front door of the Ankh kingdom. And it's here we find out that the Ankhs are actually pretty racist, and that only their kind get to cross the threshold. Oh, I see how it is. Alright. Alright. Yeah, I see how it is. It's fine. Thus emerges the Ankh Queen. I wonder how the Ankh world works. Does the Queen just have time for everyone, or is Patazi special? Maybe there's not many Ankhs in the Ankh world, so she's more like a glorified mayor. So she goes on to explain that the Earth is basically protected by this magical rock layer that deflects asteroids, and the planet is under constant bombardment. The actual layer, this outer crust, has eroded to shit over several thousands of years, because the dogs stopped taking care of it with a festival. This is actually the festival that the hot air balloon dog was trying to do, but its importance was a lot more than we originally thought. I swear, this game has just turned into a Final Fantasy game just within minutes. So, the shooting stars and the meteor storms were apparently a part of this. Remember that from 13 hours ago? Yeah, that was basically the world screaming, "I'm dying from meteors bombarding me. Please do the little happy cheer, doggos, or we're all going to die." And we didn't listen because we're too caught up in ourselves, and dog politics, and bugs, and a circus. This says a lot about society or something. So, apparently Mother Nature is letting us die because we don't appreciate her enough. Okay, that's a bit of an overstatement and is not entirely taking into account the motives, but that's the way I'm going to push it forward. One thing that she mentions here is that the dogs are wandering into the Ankh world. This is kind of important and will be brought up later. This is also why the whale is fucking shit up back home. It tumbled out of the Ankh world to cause endless devastation in the dog world. The dogs need to host the Star Festival now in order to save things. Seems a simple fix, but sure. The idea of this is that there's a sort of rally for Mother Nature, and it basically convinces her to do her job. This might seem like a bit of an ego thing, but then again, if you never get acknowledgement for your work, you're going to start slacking at some point. It's all starting to make sense, at least. So, inside the Kunka ruins is a magical stone of the heavens. This was referenced earlier. You might remember, but I won't blame you if you don't. So, I guess we just need to do one more Indiana Jones adventure before we find it. Anyway, she's nice enough to send you to the Kunka ruins and save you a trip. Here we have to look for the stone of the heavens before the universe ends. Well, I'm glad there isn't too much pressure here. You have to avoid these satanic red snakes that insist on getting in your way constantly, but nothing is as bad as the bison, so you're mostly fine. Okay, just gotta get around. Ah, shit. Okay, so this is one of those leap of faith puzzles. It's not as bad as the one from Dragon Age Oranges, where I legit have to fuck around and find out for what feels like years in order for it to work. Christ, that part of the Andraste questline still haunts me to this day. I have to find the button to this door, but can't seem to find it for ages. It doesn't help that when you think you're getting closer, you get attacked by snakes. But after 10 minutes of nearly getting murdered by snakes, I managed to find it. Next, you need to catch an ancient fish. At this point, I'm not sure why, but the opportunity has presented itself, and the last time it passed, it was somewhat painful to rectify. So I'm not taking any chances. We're getting an ancient fish. This is like a bathroom before a very long trip. Even if we don't need to go, we're going. You see, what did I say? Ancient fish opens the way again, and it was pain-free this time. So next we open the way to the final boss fight. Yes! There is a final boss fight. And yes, it's nuts. So in another scene reminiscent of something from Ico, we see the thing we want and rush towards it, only to find that the earth is now rumbling. At first we think it's like the room is shifting, but no, something's coming.
I'm a motherfucking T-Rex! I'm a motherfucking T-Rex! I'm a motherfucking...
Yes! The final boss of this game is a reanimated T-Rex skeleton. Just take a moment, right, and look at the cover of this game and tell me who the fuck could predict that. I sure as hell didn't. It also sounds like a cougar for some reason. I can't quite tell, but I swear it's basically got a cougar's growl. Patasi identifies him as that guy that was created to protect the Heaven Stone, who was left alone in this ruin to die and keep functioning as an abomination, forever doomed to roam the earth. I'm sorry, but these Anks are just fucked. Why is it that they make the Greek gods look like well-adjusted people? Be careful, he's a lot stronger than you think. Oh, is he? Is he actually? I was expecting Tyrannosaurus Rex to be a fucking pushover. Thanks for the heads up, Patazi. Anyway, Theodore Rex here is insane and violently angry, and is one of the most powerful land creatures to ever walk the earth. And since he can't murder his creator, he'll settle for murdering us instead. Thanks, Ant Queen. Thank you so much for dropping me in this and failing to mention this part of your fuck up. You thought it would just be a nice surprise. So, for this boss fight, you have to sniff out and push the right button in order to damage and eventually defeat the T-Rex. You also have to push it at the right time or it has no effect. There's a lot of pressure, as you can imagine, which is pretty fitting for a scene where you fight a T-Rex and are severely disadvantaged. It kind of reminds me of something from Peter Jackson's King Kong, only this is somehow more terrifying. You kill it, but psych, he just gets back up again. There's a secret button in the middle of the room that kills him for realsies. You have to step on that, and he's dead. No, Patazi, the poor guy just wanted to die because he's probably been alive for eons, and there's no promise that he'll ever get eternal rest, thanks to you and your necromancy. So, we get the stone, and I don't know, we become Heaven's Ward or something. We howl at the stone using our sniffing powers and it comes to life. I don't question it, it just works. Then, the temple starts to collapse because we took the stone of the heavens. But, wait a minute, what? I thought we were supposed to take the stone of the heavens every year to fill up the hot air balloon with its power to feed the crust. Do we have to build a new temple every year? Is the fact that they put this in a temple that falls apart as soon as you take it the reason that we stopped doing the festival? I'm really confused. Actually, I do sort of have a theory as to what's actually going on here. I wonder if the dogs actually rebelled against the Anks at some point and buried the Heaven's Stone down here so they didn't have to play by their rules anymore. It's the only thing that I think fits all of this together. Given how insane and evil the Anks seemingly are, I mean they've demonstrated themselves to be this several times, I wonder if their relationship with dogs was as pleasant as they made it out to be. We escape via the rickety minecart. This is the last bit of major interactivity in the game. You have to hit a direction as you see it. This is actually pretty easy, but my controller isn't configured properly, so even though I got it right, it fucked up on several of these. We make it back to the village where the mayor is here to greet us. We try to explain what's going on, but he doesn't get it because he's a stupid normie. So we use the Heaven's Stone to make it so that he can see Patazi, as can all dogs now. Patazi explains everything again, and because he's a tiny man whose existence everyone doubts, they believe him. And now we can just, you know, do the festival. Luckily, Wilbur knows just what to do. Wilbur explains that he knows the Star Festival well, but he can't perform it in this weather. Thankfully, Jeremy is here to do his little rain dance and get rid of the rain. You'd think that he'd do that by now anyway, given that this is far from a natural event. But whatever, I guess he was just waiting for someone to appreciate him. By the way, I love that he has to remind us again that his name is Jeremy, and reminds us of what he does, because he's likely self-conscious that we've forgotten his existence by now. The weatherman he coming to your town. So, they have their little festival, where they send their hot air balloons up into the sky, and this saves the world from annihilation. Good job, team, we did it. It even sent the whale back to Ankland, and it brought the legendary flower back to life. The next morning, the captain says he'll take me home with my legendary flower. You can take the time here to talk to the village residents and say your goodbyes. Yi Lu wants to train under you as your apprentice, because you're better at the whole sniff master shtick than he is. Boris says he'll always provide his service to me. He later went on to found Uber. McCoy reveals that he's not over you yet and pants at you like a creep. And my loser boyfriend Camus threatens to come and see me. This reminded me to change my name and move house within the next 6 months. Finally there's Patazi, who promises to be friends forever. And then the credits roll, and the aftermath kinda plays out. You go home, give your brat brother his cure. Patazi gets to go back to the Ant Kingdom as acknowledged and valued as a person for once in his life. Gwen randomly howls in her house. And then we get a nice slideshow presentation of all the great moments we've had. Don't go anywhere because there is a post-credit stinger. Yeah, and it's a good one, it's not just Chris Pratt eating cereal. So, in the post-credit stinger, there's a knock at the door. I was terrified for a moment, I thought Camus found us. But no, it's a border collie in a hat, scarf and glasses. It's Doluk! Wait, who the shit is Doluk? Let me just check the wiki. It's Gwen's dad! So, he explains that whilst he was looking for the legendary flower, he got lost in a faraway land and got injured and almost died. That's when he was saved by a kindly benefactor, Patazi! It seems that Doluk was one of the dogs that fell into the Ankh world, and after the barriers fixed between the dog world and the Ankh world, they were able to send him back. Or maybe they could have always done this, but decided that they needed a hostage to ensure my cooperation. I don't know. Anyway, we got him back now, and that's what matters, right? Well, anyway, that's the end of the Dog Island. I'm not even sure what I can say about this game that I haven't said thus far, but this was a really enjoyable treat of a game. There's definitely more involved games out there, but few if any of them have the spirit and passion behind them that this game conveys. I really did love every minute of the Dog Island, not even trying to guess what it would throw at me next because it's a futile effort. It's honestly the kind of game I wanted to find when I first started making Curiosity's Sake episodes, and honestly, it feels like one hell of a game to fall into my lap, as I've been sort of re-evaluating the kind of games that I want to play for the show, and this is just perfect in almost every way for that. The game is a bit of a long haul, but I don't really consider that time to be wasted, and it does have a few slight issues with it here and there, but overall, this game is very well designed and it just has a really nice, pleasant feel to it. It's definitely what I'd call a feel-good game. If you ever just are depressed, I just recommend playing this. There's just so much about it that can make someone happy, and confused, and probably a bit angry, but in a good way. Because you might as well get angry at a giant bison instead of other things that you can't defeat. Anyway, that's that. Join me next time for the Halloween episode. Assuming that this comes out before the Halloween episode. I'm kind of working on them both side by side.
I always think of you and I'll try to cross the emerald ocean. As long as the stars are guiding me, I don't know how much time I need. It's a miracle that we could find each other in this world. Don't know how far it is to get there, but we know we're always happy, 'cause it's flying to look for a dream together.
Professor Curious is okay.